Welcome everybody to the Via Studio Rebrand panel. We have got the people responsible for this, and we will not let them go until we find out what happened. How did this happen? So if you're part of a shop, you probably know that feeling of cobbler's kids where you're doing all this great work for other people and you haven't updated your own work, your own site in years. And it starts to rub on you, start to worry about it. Well, Via did it. And they actually are here today to share with you some of the ups and the downs, some surprise questions they're not expecting. You're welcome. And a lot of other stuff. So first, let's go ahead and meet everybody that's on the panel. And then I'm going to ask Jason to give a little bit of the history of Via, just so everybody knows a little bit about how long they've been running, maybe how many times they've updated the site, that sort of stuff. But we've got Jason Clark, who is the CEO of Via. Welcome, Jason.
Hello, Carl.
We got Ben Wilson, who is the Director of Strategy. Good
Hello.
to have you here, Ben.
Thanks,
We have
Carl.
got Ashley Tromler, who is the Associate Creative Director. So, and by the way, I think you did the best work. I'm just going to say it. It's amazing. Thank you, Ashley. And then we've got Mark Beek, the lead developer. Congratulations, it worked on mobile.
Yay.
I just wanted you to know that when I first looked this morning, I went, oh, damn, this looks nice. So well done. Well, Jason, why don't you share with everybody just a little bit of the backstory on Via, and then we'll dig into the rebrand.
Yeah, okay. My former business partner started Via Studio in 1996. So we're on year 24 as primarily a digital agency. When Kelly McKnight started the company, it was pretty much solely a web design company. He saw the future pretty early, and as far as I know, Via Studio in this region is the only remaining agency from that time. I'm not positive, but there might be one or two, but it's
there aren't many in the world from that time.
Yeah.
Still around,
So I joined the company in 2003, and one of the things that I noticed immediately when people asked us that they needed a website, a big part of what they really needed and didn't really understand was the brand strategy, the branding, the content. The website, the website in a lot of people's mind is that placeholder for all of that stuff. So when I joined as a partner in 2003, it was really a big mission of mine to make sure that we approached all those different disciplines and different requirements for a good brand. And here we are. I think our positioning has changed pretty. And again, one of the reasons for the rebrand, our positioning and the services that we offer speak to all of those needs.
Well, I think it's a great point too, because in 2003, the bubble had burst, but there was still that sense that people who did web stuff could do magic. And so a lot of shops existed just to get stuff on screen, and their process was nothing except to tell clients that it was done. Right?
Yeah.
Like it was just like, there was no concept of brand.
In our 15th anniversary, we changed our positioning, our tagline to leave the magic to us. And we very quickly destroyed that because it's not magic, it's hard work. And it dismisses the team and the work that they do. We don't have a magic wand. You can't get a $200,000 website for $1,000. It doesn't work like that. So
no, you can't. I've seen those people try. They run away really quick. So let's do this. This is the first question I have. Where did the idea come from that it was time? And Ashley, I'm going to ask you, because as the creative director, I can imagine that it's one of those things while you're doing all the other work, you see your own brand all the time. You see all those things. Who came up with the idea that it was time to rebrand Via?
Well, to give you some backstory, I've been at Via for only about a year and 8 months, I believe.
Okay.
So when I came in, I was told that we were going to be rebranding soon, and I was like, "Awesome! This is great! I'm super excited. Love to help out." So I had nothing to do with that decision. Ben's raising his hand, I think.
Yeah. Ben, take it away.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, like you described, many other agencies, we tried many times prior We had fits and starts about it. At the same time, though, we were also kind of brushing up our own and iterating on our own internal branding process, as Clark alluded to. So it really just became, it's almost like lifting weights. Like we did it the first couple of times and went, oh man, we can't do this. And then finally we had a couple of really good successes with that branding process that we had iterated on and said, you know what? I think it's time now that we're actually able to lift this over our head essentially and finally get it done. And so I think that was the moment when we knew. And we've got a couple of, case studies we may want to touch on there as far as like what those brands were that helped us get to that point. But that was really it. And it was a collaborative, iterative process internally that led us to that.
Well, and I do want to talk about the process a little bit. So Jason, I'm going to ask you this question. When you decided, okay, we're going to do this, how important was it to you that you followed the process you would follow for a client, knowing that there's so much emotion that's going to be in this for everyone? Because this isn't a rebrand that changes a website. It impacts a culture, right?
Yeah.
People are now seeing how you want the world to see you, and do they see themselves in it? So talk about that. How did the process change, or did you try to just stay strict?
Sure. So I would say over the last 10 years or so, we have kind of, but through trial and error, have really codified a process and a roadmap for brand strategy that has, knock on wood, it has worked every time. Kind of once we locked in all of the deliverables that we need, and I've been able to kind of promote and sell that to our clients and prospects, just watching it work every time, right? Because of this, we're doing this. Because of this, we're doing this. And you kind of build this foundation on which it's really hard to go wrong. So for example, I really didn't want to touch our logo. And as you can see on the new website, our logo has evolved. But that was like, the team came back to me and they said, hey, Jason, if you really believe what you say and what you're selling, this logo doesn't work anymore. And like, after that conversation, I'm like, oh my God, you're right. Let's do it. So really it was just kind of a process of me like relinquishing my own ego and letting the process work itself, and to phenomenal results, to be honest.
Well, and I have to say, letting go of the logo, it's the most emotional part, especially if you were part of that process the last time, because you know what you went through. You knew the pain that you felt.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when the team came to me when I was at my company, and the designer said, if we're doing it, it was the same thing. If we're doing this, we got to get rid of that logo. Yep. I was like, what? No. But
right? Yeah,
they
that's
convinced
my
me
baby.
as well, because it's the anchor, right? Yeah, Ben.
Yeah, it is the anchor. We tried. We learned hard lessons about clients that came to us and said we want a new logo and a new name or whatever those big things are, and trying to do that without having the foundation of all of the brand strategy work that we do beforehand. It ends up just being a fist fight, right? Instead of something that is, that is built upon something that is really strong. It's like a statue without a base, And so we finally realized, hey, wait a minute, you can't make a logo, you can't rename your business unless you know real truths around that business, And I think that's as Jason mentioned, he didn't want to change the logo, but after we had done all of the work, we said, we've got this whole case made here to make that change, and we feel strongly about it. And that's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, how is it based on strategy and rationale if you're not going to change that anchor, right?
Yeah.
So Mark,
Absolutely.
I want to ask you, one of the things that you hear repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly, if you're in this space, is we need a developer at the table from the beginning. Now, you're also part of the company and part of the culture. So you're not just a developer in this process, right? You're part of the team. So what was this process like for you compared to if you're working for an external client?
It was interesting to get to go through because we as a company kind of went through the branding process together, figuring out and codifying like what are the core values and how are those going to inform the brand and inform the website. And that was really exciting for me because I don't normally get to see that part of it. But then after that, it really was like every other project that we do. We have the process that we were going through, and we followed it and came up with something cool.
There you go. Well, you know, there's nothing wrong with having something cool. A lot of times it feels like people are worried that, oh, we're just making it look this way or do this thing. But the reality is that's part of an experience as well. That's part of a brand as well. So Jason, question for you. What was something that you had to let go of from the previous design or brand or concept of what VIA was that was the hardest for you? Ben is smiling.
Why don't we ask Ben, because he might have a different answer. I would love to hear his perspective on that. Just a little history. Ben and I have worked together for almost 25 years at different agencies.
There you go.
So, man, you don't put me on the spot.
Actually, you know what, Ben? Let's keep this one on Jason. Come on, Jason.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
What was the thing you had to let go of?
Well, the logo, obviously, we talked about that. Really, like, so I guess one of the biggest things and the things that I like, a small agency like ours can be a real cult of personality. So my job in a lot of ways, you know, being the figurehead of the company is to be out there, to be marketing us, to be talking to people. So a lot of people associate VIA Studio specifically with me. And, you know, the more and more I got comfortable in my leadership role, the less and less comfortable I became with that association. It really bothered me when somebody's like, dude, that work was so cool. And, you know, like I spent maybe 10 hours involved in it and the team spent hundreds. Like it wasn't fair to the team. It wasn't fair to the company. So that wasn't necessarily hard to let go. But when we were considering our brand, I am not VIA Studio. And that was something that we worked really hard to make sure that, you know, I'm, you know, my role diminishes a little bit so the team and our skills and our services can sing.
Yeah, Carl, that's exactly why I leaned in, because that change right there mirrors what actually happened within the organization. You know, this is maybe a little inside baseball, but Jason moved from being the creative director to president and CEO. And so the style had to change, the brand had to change along with that. And I think what you see now versus the past iterations of our brand is exactly that. It is much more of less of a figurehead driven thing and more of a team driven collaborative thing. And that reflects reality now. So again, all of what we've done, I think, really is based in reality, and you can see it should be completely transparent. You know, you should be able to see that in the brand.
Yeah, I complete agreement. And one of the things that really impressed me when you were getting me up to speed was that there was a full pitch deck, like really well thought out, not like thrown together in the corners and I grabbed a couple of images and said, let's use this for our color palette, right? Like, no, it was like super well thought out. So Ashley, I'm going to ask you, how did the pitch deck come about? Like, who was responsible for it? Was it a group effort or an individual? Like, how did that get started and focused?
Yeah, so the pitch deck is basically developed throughout the entire process, and it's all hands on deck. Everyone's involved with it. And it's basically like the outcome of each stage of our process. So, you know, when we go through all of our stakeholder interviews, all of our different exercises that we do, that is a live like record of everything. And so we're constantly changing it, constantly updating it. And at the end, it becomes this just history of like everything that we've done. And it's really cool to just kind of see the progression of how, you know, that ended up being. And it's like a 30-page document. Like it's been developed and it's thoughtful. And I think it represents our brand very, very well. I'm really happy with the outcome of that.
What made me happiest about it when I was going through it was it's just infused with rationale,
Mhm.
right? It's infused with strategy. It's infused with why. And that to me is always the challenge most shops have when they're redoing their own work, because
Right.
they're also trying to balance the client work, right? And they don't treat themselves as a client. You hear it all the time. Well, you got to treat yourself as a client. Give it a
Mhm.
job number, whatever. Like that's not the way that happens. It happens when people give you air cover. So
Right.
Mark, I'm going to come back to you. Once you started seeing, and obviously you were part of it, but once you started seeing how this was going to play out, what did you do, or what were you given that allowed you the time to create? All this work comes in, and then you help create the end product. How were you given that air cover?
It's a good question.
And don't quit. Don't quit during this. I've had that happen. You're like, I'm out. I didn't get any air cover. No.
No, I mean, one of the things that I value so much about the team at VIA is how much store we put in collaboration across all disciplines. Like we try really hard not to be siloed. People are not going off into their corners and throwing things over the fence when they're done. Like everybody is working together the whole step of the way. So in the beginning, Dev was doing research on the tech stack that we wanted to use, while design and strategy were figuring out their parts. And then our main front-end developer spent tons of time working directly with design to sort of build the design system that we were going to use to build out the site. So it's not even that Dev is like being supported. It's just that we're all doing the whole thing together the whole time.
Yeah, that's great. Go ahead, Jason.
I remember a specific piece in the process that really impressed me with the development team, because they came back to me with a list of things like, because these are our values and this is the kind of the strategy that we are developing. Here are our goals for the website. This is what we want the website to be and to do. And it was another conversation of like, we didn't use WordPress this time. Okay, why? Everybody loves WordPress. And that was a really, really fun, interesting, like enlightening conversation from my perspective, because I'm not, knee deep in web development like I used to be. So it was a great conversation.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah. Just to kind of add on to that, I mean, like anytime we do a web project or any project, really, we have a list of the requirements that we want to be able to hit with it, a must have, should have, could have, that sort of stuff. And so we all had input in that list, right? So there are things that we all want to achieve. There are things that, Jason from a business development standpoint wants to achieve, from strategy, like, it has to be fast and has to be indexable, and there are design things and there's development things as well. And so, just everybody had a piece in that, which is unique in my rebranding or even agency website development experience, which Mark and I actually share. We've been down this road before. So just everybody having a piece of it and investment in it. There's something they need to get out of it. There's something they want to learn, et cetera, too. So that goes to that collaboration. And I think that's really what makes everything move so well through our agency anyway.
Yeah. And just that you all had that voice, you worked together on it, because you're right. So many times, especially with creative shops, not even digital, but when you look at traditional agencies and stuff, it's from the mountain. Somebody comes down with it. They either hired somebody from the outside. How horrible is that? Right.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
somebody that doesn't even know you says, this is who you are. You don't know me. Right. So it's like, then the whole company starts to shudder a little bit. So the fact that you use this, it's almost like a rally, right? Like everybody is getting into it. Jason, how do you let clients know that there may be some times, or did you find a way to work through everything without clients even noticing that you were spending so much time on this?
Oh, for us.
Yeah.
Well, I think, we got, obviously we're in a pandemic right now. So we did, to be perfectly honest, we did have a couple projects drop off in March and April.
Lined up.
So, and, that was perfect timing, and it allowed us to get the momentum. When you're rebranding yourselves with client work and trying to pay the bills, you're pushing a boulder up a hill. So, honestly, that time allowed us the space to really, dig in and focus on, once you've laid the foundation for a really good rebrand, the rest of the work comes a little bit naturally. You've got some momentum. And then as projects started to come back, it was easier to, we had enough of our own trafficked time for this project to kind of align with the rest of our client work.
That's great. And it's something I want to get framed. Don't waste a perfectly good pandemic. Right. So it's like you took advantage of that. I can't remember who I heard say that the first time, but I think it's true. It's like, it's an opportunity to reinvent, to rethink, not just who you are, but how you are and what you do. So
right, that's my mantra forever has been, client billable work comes first, right? We got to keep the lights on. And I had to tone that down a little bit so we could keep this going. And again, once the work starts to reveal itself, you get so excited about it, you make time.
Yeah. So one thing I want to hit on, again, going through that pitch deck, was the content strategy, was the idea of the tone, how you were presenting yourself. So actually, Ashley, I'll ask you, how did that process go when you start defining kind of how you want to be perceived?
Well, first of all, it's very difficult. It's a lot of back and forth. I think one of our exercises that really, really helps hone in on the voice and tone is our semantic exercise, which we all kind of just sit down and we'll make a chart of, approachable versus authoritative. On this scale of 1 to 5, where are we now? Where do we want to end up? And I think that exercise, and we do that with our clients, that's a part of our process. And that exercise alone is just eye-opening, and everyone, starts conversation. You're able to have a clear picture of where we are and where we want to go. And that directly influences the voice and tone a great deal, as well as just the look and feel of a brand too.
So Ben, when you started looking at the grid, because I remember it in the deck where you had the little fuel gauge going across. So what did you think when you start seeing, and just like the one that Ashley brought up, right? Approachable versus authoritative, right? One is great at the beginning, the other is great during and at the end. So how was that for you, Ben, given that you were leading the strategy?
As far as writing the voice and tone, or
just thinking through, how do you want to be?
Yeah. Well, again, I'll just echo Ashley in saying that there's no way that one person could do that in a vacuum necessarily. And so the conversation that comes out of those is really enlightening. How do we want to be seen publicly? How do we want to be seen even more specifically to our prospective clients, et cetera? And how do we maintain our own independence and just don't kind of always be, chasing the next project or chasing the next buck? How do we stay true to ourselves, right? And keep the team interested as well. So those conversations there are really important. And so it ends up being a bit of a honing process. We all took some initial whacks at making a brand statement. And even during the concepting, that was more than just the design team. We came up with verbal concepts of how we would how we would pitch whatever this new brand was in words first, using all of the research that we had done, the stakeholder interviews, the semantic, and all of that. And we really just kind of honed it down from there. And obviously, somebody had to say, yes, this is the concept we want to go with. But it's not like it just sprang fully formed out of anyone's mind by any means, which I think everyone assumes that just happens. You have this Don Draper moment and you go,
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that, at least not at VIA. But I think what we end up with is true.
Yeah. So when you're thinking through the voice and you're thinking through how you're going to carry it through all elements, right, including the logo, including everything, it's got to fall in to support that. I'm curious, did you get clients involved at all? So Jason, did you have any clients take a look, and say, that's not who you are, or, wow, I really see you like this, before you start diving into that execution?
Sure. I think Ashley and Ben can probably answer this question better because they're the ones that did the interviews. But the beginning of our brand strategy process includes, as many stakeholders as possible, and that includes customers and clients. So with us and, with our clients themselves, we're like, who's a fan, who might not be a fan, who may have had a bad experience with our process or, with us. So, from my perspective, yes, like a brand is also who people perceive you to be. So if you don't get that information back, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah. If you don't know the audience, it's hard to put together the strategy, right? And I
Yeah,
saw that
yeah.
you did do the personas and stuff. And one of the things that I always thought, and I don't know if people do this, but create the personas for the clients you don't want. So when they show up, you can go, wait a second. No. I remember you. You're Moaning Myrtle. Get out of here. I don't want that. So Ashley, what was the process of the interviews like?
The interviews were really eye-opening. I don't think I was a part of the actual interview. I wasn't an interviewer, but I had a really unique perspective because, like I said, I had just
You were
started at
pretty
VIA.
new.
Yeah. So I was a part of the interviews in the beginning, and I came with a very outside perspective. I mean, Louisville's very small. I knew of VIA for the last 5-10 years that I've been in the business. So I had a really unique perspective on the company, the culture, the voice and tone. So I think that's kind of where I came in on the stakeholder process. But I think we had and Ben, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we only had like 2 or 3 people actually doing the interviews.
Yeah, and we the stakeholders that we interviewed there, we actually were really fortunate that we had a few new hires like Ashley, I shouldn't say new, but recent hires that had also been in the agency world and kind of known us from the outside and had enough functional knowledge of other agencies, et cetera. And so they became a really critical point. In fact, we didn't even let them in on the whole of the rebrand until we interviewed them first. Like, you are a perfect specimen for that one specific audience, which is what we refer to as kind of just our people that are in our orbit, our community, other designers, other agencies, other people that are, in the marketing world, might leave the agency world to become a client, or something like that. So, the stakeholders that we identified map to our audiences, which are prospective clients, prospective employees, people that are kind of just fans of us, but then also internally as well. We did a lot of internal stakeholders as well to understand what the team needed out of the brand. So getting all of those various perspectives and then viewing them and prioritizing them according to the different audiences that we wanted to be able to hit was really key. And those, just to speak about what those interviews look like, it's typically very, very informal. Sometimes they're one-on-one, and thankfully we did these pre-COVID, which was nice.
Oh.
Sometimes they're one-on-one, but for some clients we'll do, an entire group of people, from a specific discipline or a function within the organization as well. And it's really fairly open. Investment there is key, perspective is key. And I guess that's really those are the 2 big takeaways that I take from stakeholder meetings, is that perspective, is both the perspective and their own insights.
Well, and it's good. I'm really impressed that you had the stakeholders not only being the people who keep the lights on. Well, you can argue everybody keeps the lights on, right? But when you start looking at attracting great humans, right? When you want new people to join the team, sometimes the way you present yourself could be a little out of sync with what you're thinking when you bring in great clients, right? Because that approachable, versus authoritarian, those types of things could be different for the different groups. I want to belong to something. I want to make sure this gets done. So that to me becomes pretty interesting as well. Jason, when you went through it, did you find any times where the personas were kind of, or the stakeholders and personas were kind of at odds with each other?
No, not really. I think, we've been thinking about this rebrand for years at this point, if every agency doesn't, I salute you. So, we were pretty well aware of our weaknesses with our own positioning and brand for, I would say strongly for at least 2 years.
Okay.
We had built, the previous website we had built, 10 years ago, maybe. And, as soon as we launched that, when there were aspects of it that, very quickly got out of date or got a little old for us, or that copy just doesn't ring true. And, but, you're speeding, you're trying to land the next project, and it's that thing that's always just out of reach. So
things change fast.
No. Yeah, we're all pretty self-aware of the things that we love and don't love about our brand and the website and everything. So
yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, just thinking about the differences between our personas and the stakeholder interviews we did. Actually, just kind of cracking open Jason's brain about business development was really interesting, because we kind of realized that one of our major personas there is one that we really hadn't considered, which is people who had worked with us previously, either from another agency perspective or whatever, or a direct a marketing director sort of function. And we went, oh wait, these people come and go so much in this industry, and they leave agency world, they go somewhere else, but they trust us because they know us and they know our process. And that was like a aha, and we actually have a couple of people that kind of fit that bill on our staff right now. And we were able to interview them as well, people that had previously been clients of ours. And that's huge, especially for a smaller town like we are, but also just generally how agencies function,
those ambassadors,
yeah,
especially when they join the team, we used to say, we know we've done a great job if the client sends us their resume. Right. we know at that point the work was great, the experience was great. That's the ultimate. But then you have to say no so often, and that can end a relationship as well.
That happens a lot. Yeah.
So
Mark,
when we start looking at all of this, and you're obviously, how long have you been there, Mark?
I've been at VIA almost 5 years.
Okay. So you inherited, if you did anything with it, the previous website, it was obviously something that you were familiar with. It was something that reflected on you. When you come to the new website with the new ideas, what were some of the goals for you personally? What were things you wanted the new website to show?
My number one goal for the new website was for it to be fast, super fast. I said that I wanted it to be so fast that people noticed and were a little freaked out by how fast it was. Which is not to say that the old website was horribly pokey and awful, but there's only so much performance that you can get out of WordPress. And so we wanted to try experimenting with other things to really get that blazing, super fast experience.
So talk about that a little bit. So Jason, you had hinted at it earlier about not using WordPress, not using that CMS. What did you end up doing? What were the benefits? What do you think the challenges might be?
Since we were going to have a pretty rich front end experience for people, we decided to go with more of a single page app approach.
Okay.
And so that meant using a headless CMS. We obviously needed to have some kind of content management system that anybody in the company could go and put content into and make changes. And we looked at WordPress as a headless CMS, and that works pretty well. There's a lot of different choices out there. We ended up settling with Sanity for the back end. It's a fantastic content management system. It's super fast. They have their own content delivery network built in, and you have a huge amount of control over how you customize the back end. So Go ahead,
Mark,
Jason.
can you explain what a headless CMS is?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So a CMS is a content management system, and it's a place where you can go and you can put in your blog posts and your page content and your images and things. With WordPress, the CMS side and the part that the user interacts with are all the same website. They all live on the same server. It's all serving up the same content. A headless CMS, the CMS part sits somewhere else, and then you have a separate website that talks to the CMS to get the data to display to the user.
Mhm.
And that gives you a lot of potential for different efficiencies and just that rich front end experience.
Yeah. Well, and also that speed you were looking for,
Right.
right? Because it's not carrying all that weight with it.
Yeah.
Move forward. So,
Yeah.
Jason, I'm curious, when you go through, you have the conversation, you agree on the headless CMS, you've got everything getting ready to go. How did you communicate with clients about it? Did you include them with the general conversation, or did you let them know that, you're kind of, it's a little bit of a coming out party?
We had the team that worked on the project had a really great idea. And about a week and a half ago, we sent out a direct mailer to all of our clients.
Got one.
Did you get one? And it had a holographic sticker with a new logo on it and a link to a preview of some of the new branding. It was just a video. And that was, I think, the best way to just let them know that something was coming, build a little bit of excitement. But there wasn't like a daily, any kind of
Right.
like deep interaction on that. We wanted it to be a little bit of a surprise. And, part of the whole concept of the new brand is there's some mystery. There's, the portal and the threshold that you cross. So, we wanted to be a little bit mysterious about it and just, give a little sneak peek behind the curtains. And I think that worked very well. If we do something successfully, you only really hear from people what you did wrong, or if somebody is super, super, super excited. So I haven't heard any of the former, and I've gotten, quite a few pings about the latter. People are, people in the industry love a good rebrand. So we've got a great story. We've got a great case study. Like you say, all the rationale is there. So I think, if people really explore what we've done and the rationale for what we've done and see some of the things that are still to be launched, the excitement continues.
Yeah.
We're not an entertainment company, but if you do your job well, you can enchant people.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't want to say magic. Okay.
It's not magic.
Because
No.
you got rid of the magic, but you said
Nobody that
enchant.
worked on this project would say it
Not
was
sure
magic.
enchanting. But one of the things that I think is great about a rebrand is it's a chance to reintroduce yourself to your current community, right? The people in your network, the people that you work with, all of these types of things. And so it's also a way to show clients who you are, because they may have known who you were and they don't let go of it. Right.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So
yeah,
they come asking you to do stuff that you haven't done in years. So this is an amazing opportunity. So what kind of stuff did you hear, Jason? You said that people said that they liked it, but was there anything specific?
Not yet, to be honest.
Okay.
Today is the big reveal of everything. So, we've got an open Slack channel and everybody on the team is posting feedback that they see around the web, but we haven't gotten a chance to nobody's had a chance to really deeply explore everything yet. So I hope that comes in the next week or so.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Ben, a question for you, and Ashley, you might want to chime in on this as well. The governance of the new site. So now there's going to be, over the next 4 months, 6 months, a year, new content coming in. Mark, obviously you'll be part of this as well. New ideas, things that might change. How do you hold it to the original concept when there's something that would just be great? Let's just do it. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's what happened on the old site. I mean, if we were like, oh, we should really do this one-off thing. Let's put it here. I do think that if you look at starting from the navigation structure, we went back to basics and
super simple.
So yeah, Exactly. We went back to basics, and all of that stuff is prioritized on what we needed as an organization out of this new brand and the new website. And so we feel like, anyway, and this has all been kind of, theoretical until we actually launch it and start, creating new content for it. But the concept here is that we know, we know our audiences, we know what they need. People need to look at our work. They need to then go one step deeper and understand our approach. And then after that point, they go, well, maybe I can work with these folks. They want to go see about us, right? If they want to go deeper than that and keep up with us, then we have our journal, which was previously, a blog. And so we feel like we don't want to put anything on the website that doesn't necessarily align to one of those steps kind of in the marketing funnel. And that's getting a little bit in the weeds there. But we feel like there's a place for everything that we might want to do, and it's super structured. And I think maybe Ashley can probably talk about that from a design standpoint, what we've achieved there. Yeah.
I think one of my goals for the website during the rebrand was to just make everything concise and consistent. And along with that comes the navigation and the user journeys and things like that. So, I remember on the previous site, just doing an audit of it, I'd end up like on a page where I'm like, where am I? Like, what is this about? Like, this looks like the illustration styles are all different. Like, what's going on here? So that was a huge goal for me and the design team, is to just kind of hone in, stick to the plan. And that's why we have, that pitch deck, that foundation built, and we're also really good at having tough conversations with each other. So if somebody has an idea about something to go on the website, and we're like, that's not necessarily where we're headed, and here's why. Here's why we're, sticking to our guns with this. So it's a lot of awkward, tough conversations, but at the end, like, we all want the best for the website and the brand, and ends up being a solid product.
Mm-hmm. And the website is a promise of what people are going to experience with the organization and the people, right? It's that beginning. A lot of times it's that first experience. So if it's simple and there's nothing feels out of whack or, shaky, it goes a long way. Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Just to say that, like, also we have a content strategy that's going to follow up from this. Like, for example, we are, I guess one of the foundational things about that content strategy is just be more deliberate. We trust in our experience and our capabilities, perhaps way more than we ever did. And I feel like the brand shows that. And we also just want to be more deliberate about what we put out there. So the case studies have a higher level of polish. We're using each different platform in different ways. Like we blew away our Instagram here, and then and that is to use that to its strength. We are gonna, and Ashley's actually gonna be handling that, I believe, as well. So just as one example, if we put something out there, we're putting far more craft and thought into it than we did in the past, and that's really just because we're much more confident in what we can do. That's great. So Jason, I'm curious, what of the old content from the site, like Ashley had said, some of it felt it wasn't working with the new brand, but like when you start to look at old posts that were super popular, when you start to look at things like that, what did you carry over and what did you cut?
It's interesting. Okay. So you've got a few different reasons to post content. Obviously, the number, taking up 80% of my brain space is new business. But balancing that, I've got a very casual nature. You've met me. I cuss. I like weird music. Again, like a lot of my personality was infused with a lot of the old content. And some of it was silly and some of it was superfluous to our business goals. And those are the kind of things that we're like, if we've got like a culture focused, which is what we consider that kind of stuff to be, is more culture focused. It doesn't necessarily belong on the website. There's a channel for that now, which is our social media streams. So those are the types of things that we're like, we can take a pass on that. There were also some bigger commitments that we made with our old website. So when we architected it, the homepage was intended to always have maybe every 3 to 6 months have a new campaign. So, when we launched it, we did a, this weird Chinese calendar thing, who's your violent imaginary animal. And it was fun, but it just didn't work. That long-term strategy, we overcommitted. So that was like, again, stripping back to what our audiences need from the site, and anything that's more culture focused or, interesting, but kind of off center there's a place for that. And we're still doing that weird stuff. There's an astrology calendar that the team built that just blows my mind. But we're going to launch that on a separate domain and, give ourselves kudos for that, but it's not via studio.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I don't want to use the term labs. You remember everybody did that for a while. Oh, we'll just put it over here. It's a junk drawer. We'll call it labs. But with you saying that, I think what it does is it does allow people to engage with you the way they want to. And the idea of a website is always so awkward, because are people going to come back? What's the goal? Is it to start a conversation? Is it to close the deal? Is to keep them up to speed with what you're doing? Do they want to be up to speed? It's like there are all those things that happen. And just real quickly, I remember being at an event and somebody said that a homepage of a website was like the lobby of a hotel. You only go there when you first get there, or if something's wrong and you can't figure out what to do.
Yeah. If you look at analytics,
where do we spend all the time? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right, Carl. I mean, we have a far better understanding now than we did 10 years ago of how people use the website. And I think that's absolutely true. And I hope you can see that, in what we've designed there.
Yeah. I mean, it's super streamlined. And I think that's one of the important things. And the sense that I did get was, this is just to start the conversation. Yep. I'm not supposed to stay here for a long time. I'm just supposed to get enough confidence that this is the group I want to work with, that I want to be a part of, that I can move on to an easy conversation.
Right. Yeah. If you want to be entertained, stick around for the DJ live stream.
Exactly. But then that's the awesome thing about using Instagram that way, where we can promote our culture. That's where we can promote the keyboard toss, like FastSpot used to do, or whatever, right? Like, those are great things. So Mark, I'm gonna come back to you. So the site's launched. Obviously, there's going to be a few weeks of little things that come up, little edge cases or whatever that you decide to pay attention to or don't pay attention to, whatever. Forget all that stuff. Once you launched, what were the things that you thought, what would be great to do next? What were the things that you may have thought, I would love to see us be able to do this?
Most of what I have been thinking about is on the content management side. One of the things that I mentioned about Sanity being great is how well you can customize the experience for editors in the content management system.
Yeah.
There are still some areas of that are not as streamlined as I would like them to be. Like, there are certain tasks that happen in the content management system that are a little putsy to deal with right now. And I would love to go back and try to make those processes more efficient.
Yeah, I think, and that's the sign of a great team member right there, right? It's like, it's the old Jobs quote talking about his dad or whatever, that it's got to look as good. It's got to work as good on the inside as it does the outside. It's not just about that presentation layer. Everything's a presentation layer. It's all got to work great. So good job, Jason. I like that guy. I like that guy, Mark.
Mark is the soul of this company. We have what would Mark do is what we say in private Slack channels.
So Jason, we're coming up to like 10 minutes left. And what I would love to do is start to dig into, how are you going to judge the effectiveness? How are you going to stay in tune with the impact that the rebrand has done? So what are the ways that you're going to start looking to measure it?
Well, that's luckily, again, that's part of our codified process at this point as a measurement plan. So that is, we have metrics and we've got dashboards. Ben and the strategy team have done a great job integrating those types of things into Google Data Studio, kind of bringing in different metrics from different places, Google Analytics, contact forms, site traffic, all of that. So, our goals obviously is deeper relationships with new business. We feel like one of our big strengths now is if we can integrate on a deep level, we can do this type of work for our clients. So those engagements are, in the scope of things, they're fairly rare. You pick up, a few of them a year. But they're the ones that the team loves the most. They're the ones that, everyone comes out of that more satisfied. So, on a business level, that's what I would like to see is it's easier to sell those larger engagements. And then, just the telling the story is easier. Like they don't have to poke around on a messy website to figure out who we are and what we do.
Yeah, I think that's great because that is one of the things that always happens. And I'm going to ask you this question, Ben. Obviously, we live in a copycat industry, right? It's we actually at one point did choose your theme for our website. I want the big hero theme. I want the big words theme. And so people could just see it how they wanted to, but poking fun at everyone. You've obviously come out with something fresh now. One of the things around content is, do we share the services? Do we show our circle of process? Do we, all of that sort of stuff. So when you were sitting there looking at that, how much of an impact of not looking like everybody else, how much did that play into it? As well as just that experience of people coming in and having an understanding of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I think a lot of this, I think Ashley will have some thoughts about that too, but from a where did we start standpoint, we didn't necessarily go, okay, well, these are the things that an agency site must do. We looked at not only our past experience, but a lot of data, the stakeholder interviews, the research, what we understood about our audience. And we said, what is really most important to them? Let's do that to a high level of polish. And that's why you see like the work, for example, is hugely important. And then after that, it's how the work gets done. How do clients, what is the question that's going on in a client's head? And that is, what's the next step? How do you all actually work? That sort of thing. How do we work together? And we actually took a lot of cues, not from agency websites, but from software development, like that usually operate on a contract form. Clients are often asking just, hey, what's the next step going to be? How quickly can I get this done? What does your all's process look like? At a very like pragmatic level. And so that's why that's the second level of our website. So that's how we approach that. More of like a psychographic, like what's in their head, what is the question that needs to be answered next for that client? And then I think that feeds into, like how we treat work, which is Ashley's domain, but I just kind of put that out there from a strategy standpoint. Here's the question we need to answer. And then I handed it off to design to get it done.
Yeah. And I think what you just said there is so important. Can that prospect envision themselves in that work? Would our logo fit there? Would that show who we are? And that is so important. Go ahead, Jason.
Well, I just wanted to plug the Bureau of Digital in that process. Just really, I've been involved for, 7 or 8 years at this point, and just being able to interact with industry leaders and people that I look up to on a daily basis has helped me gain perspective on how to grow and evolve this company. And hopefully some of those insights have led all of our processes. So thank you, Carl.
All right. Thank you, Jason. No, seriously. And that is the thing. We're not alone.
Right.
And we're in an industry that's super open and welcoming. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. Ashley, let's talk for just a second about the work and the way the work is presented. So talk some about the strategy and the goals for how the work is shared.
Well, the work, for one thing, it's still a work in progress. We are still, we've got tons of case studies that we're still trying to push out. But my vision of the work section is to be a little bit less telling and more showing. I think in the past, we've tended to over-explain, go way too deep into the weeds on things, which is great because it shows our expertise. It shows, the reasoning, but it's about finding that balance of like, okay, is someone going to want to read 5 paragraphs or do they just want to see the work? So that was something that we, kept going back and forth on and are still kind of going through that. But I think where it is right now, it's struck a good balance of both. So
that's great. Well, and I think it is that, again, it gets to the purpose of the site. Is it to start a conversation? Then let them follow up and ask for more information, right? Like that sort of thing. As corny as that sounds, that really the for more information stuff works. That call to action to find out more like truly works. So I have one question left that I'm going to ask all of you. And you each had a different role in this project. And the question is, for somebody else in your role about to approach this, what piece of advice do you have for them? And Jason, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. If you are talking to another owner who's in charge of sales, who's coming out of that cult of personality, right?
Yeah.
What do you share with them when they're getting started on this journey?
I would say leave all your preconceived notions at the door, come in with as little ego as possible and let your team guide you. That is, my nature is, I'm always ready to be the first person to talk or to have an idea or to, hey, how about this? Hey, how about this? And it doesn't allow your own team to step up as leaders. And that's, and I hope that that's, what they want from me is to help them become their own leaders and to grow in their own careers and their own expertise. So, I mean, really, I had the least involvement in this. I had low involvement in this and trusted the process that we developed. I sell that process every day. So I would be a hypocrite if I did not allow myself to follow the process and not try to lead it or change it or distract people with the next shiny thing that we might be able to do.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for all leaders. If
Right.
you're the oak tree, you're casting so much shade, nothing can grow,
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that as nice as it may feel to sit under that oak tree, eventually you got to give people that room.
There's so much danger there. And I've been that person. And with hindsight, some of the stuff that I've, like just trying to be the me kind of person, it doesn't work. You're not a good leader if that's all you do.
Yeah. Mark, what advice would you have for somebody that's in charge of the development side of a rebrand?
It's all about research and prep. The more stuff you can do up front, the more problems you can anticipate, the more approaches you can work through before you actually start building anything, the easier a time you're going to have. Because when you're in the middle of it, you don't really have time to think about anything. Like you're sort of just moving. So you want to get all that stuff hashed out up front.
I think that's great advice for everyone at every level of whatever they're doing. The more prep you can do, the more you can prepare for different scenarios. So thank you. That was great. Ashley, what about somebody who's going to take the charge on the creative side?
Well, my answer was very similar to Mark's. That foundation work is extremely important and really makes the rest of the process easy. And we talk about process a lot, but I think my other piece of advice is don't be afraid to do something really weird and different. If, happy accidents can be the best accidents, and take the time to explore every different possible situation, and don't just stick to the book. That would be my advice.
Yeah. Again, great advice. The whole happy accident, do something totally different, just see what happens.
Mhm.
Because that's obviously, as you're very process driven, as you're all of that, you also have to be careful not to get on a conveyor belt, right?
Yep.
Because then you end up with just stuff coming out. So that's great. Ben, what about for people who are driving the strategy side?
Yeah. It's been a strategy is not a strategy is kind of a new thing. So it's like it's always changing. No one, there's no playbook for it. But I think what we found works best for us and worked in this process is just having your job in strategy is to set up a decision-making framework. And that's doing the research, having the data available, understanding the goals, giving priority to things, and then handing that off to the team. And as long as they know those things, as long as everybody is aware of those things, what are the big goals? What are our priorities here? Then literally anything can happen, but they will have what they need in order to make good decisions and to make sure that the work follows from that research goals and priorities. And that's it, So did the site end up exactly like I thought it was going to? No, but does it? No, but, or the brand and the site both. No, but does it perfectly align to that stuff that we did and that we were all involved in and invested in? Yeah, it does.
That's great. Well, on behalf of the industry, on behalf of the Bureau community, I want to thank you and applaud you very much for sharing with everyone the approach that you went through, the process, the thought, the way that you work together. I don't want to get corny, but it's a little inspirational. And the fact that you wanted to launch it by sharing how you did it, I think is just something everybody can learn from, because there's so much work to be done. There's so many things that we can partner on, that we can share with each other. There's no reason to feel like we're isolated at
Absolutely.
these times.
Amen. Right.
So with that, Jason, if you have anything else you want to share, or we'll let these lovely people who joined us go on their way.
No, thanks everyone for attending, and anyone who may view this afterwards. We will archive this on our YouTube channel. And again, just like being able to be so proud of a team and a process and a culture that we've developed here it's a dream come true. There's a lot more stuff that we're about to release. One of our art directors made an incredible font that will be available free on the site that aligns with the brand, that I'm just like, I teared up when they showed me. I'm still like, yeah, can't wait. So, stay tuned. And again, Carl, thank you. I really value what I get from the Bureau of Digital and from all the work that you do. So I'm honored that you could be a part of this panel.
I appreciate your inviting me to be. Thank you, Jason. And thanks, everybody.